Hi, so this is I was just thinking of what would be a nice piece to make for a sort of nocturne, and the kind of melody I was thinking of is um, yeah, to go dum dee dum dee dum, and then as the bass line, and then the main melody be da dum dee dee da 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 dee dee dum dee dee da da dee dee. And it seems to me that all music is basically a variation on a basic theme, on a basic genre. So it could be a waltz. I think nocturnes are all basically variations on waltzes and etudes, scherzi. These are all they all come down to basic forms, and they're just variations on those basic forms, I think. So anyway, that's just my theory, and I may be greatly mistaken, but it seems that that's the case. So they call it something else, like Chopin with his scherzi. His scherzi are, in my opinion, etudes, just simply, but he's called them scherzi because they have some kind of a jokey element to them, maybe, but they're not anything like the scherzi of, for example, earlier composers. So he just took in my opinion, he took just an etude, which is already hundreds of years old, and he called it a scherzi, because he called them scherzi because he added maybe some kind of an element of musical sort of joke in it, or some kind of musical humour. But basically, I think that everything can be traced to either military marches, etudes, waltzes, or simple kind of basically fugues, but just basic exercises in counterpoint. That's it. So fugues in that sense. Unless I'm mistaken, that's so. Anyway, this is what was going through my head. It's something like this, and then to have a repeated da 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 to somewhere along the line. So I think I heard that Shostakovich wrote in his head. Or no, he wrote, but he would have written in his head. I think that he wrote them down. He didn't have a piano, so he didn't write at the piano, which I think is possibly a good thing, because then you don't get distracted with things that you hadn't planned to write. So whether or not he had tunes in his head, I've heard it said that Mahler said that all his tunes were given by God. Rachmaninoff said that the third concerto beginning just wrote itself, so probably the same thing. I think that might be true for Rachmaninoff and Mahler. They just had these melodies which came to them, and you could say that's from God, but maybe it was, maybe that's a little bit too. Maybe that's a little bit a stretching of the truth of the matter, which was just that they had a tune in their head, and then when they had it in their head, they sort of formulated more or less a piece of music from the tune in the head, like humming a tune. So anyway, that's my theory, and so this is the tune I had in my head, and I'll try to do what I heard in my head on the piano. So I thought I might make a video of this. Thank you. Here we go. So I just wanted some kind of a left hand like that, some kind of which is basically a waltz, more or less, but slowed down, so it sounds like a nocturne. So I call it a nocturne, like Chopin did with the Scherzi, called basically etudes, called them scherzos, Scherzi. It's just, in my opinion, it's just scherzo. All Chopin's are just an etude, in my opinion. All Chopin's Scherzi, with a comic element in them and massive embellishments, of course. So my idea was to have something like a waltz, but slowed down. That's my version of a nocturne, and then a descending run. So the waltz, similar to the Tchaikovsky season, Vremena Gordy, and of June, which I've already done a nocturne about. So this would be another nocturne along the lines of one of the other ones I've done. But the right hand will be more or less like the Chopin mazurka at the end of the A minor one, posthumous, which goes da dum dee dee. So my right hand would go da dum dee dee da dee 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 dee. Then to change everything, a repeated bass. I think it's called a pedal point. Okay, and to make it also give some kind of a darker slant to the piece, and then go back to the nocturne or waltz, as I have. Right, as well, I think a nocturne is slowed down. So here we go. So this is what was going around my head as I was swimming today. Not that I didn't specifically try to think of a tune. It wasn't just come from God, like apparently it happened to Mahler and Rachmaninoff. Just a tune, and this is how it sounds. So this is I try to remake on the piano. And I think composing is as simple as that, and I think there's a lot of mystification of what composing is. Okay, yeah, and I may be wrong, of course. like that is my recommendation for anyone who was thinking about doing some composing. I don't think it's as difficult as it's made out to be. I think it's just basically variations on basic forms, and I would call those forms the fugue, the most basic fugue. So an invention, a Bach invention, something like that, where it's simply it's just like notes and how they go together, no rhythm, no particular rhythm. Okay, and then from that, and that could go for something like the pathetic third movement, the second or third episode, the bit where it sounds a little bit like kind of counterpoint, like a fugue slightly, just a bit kind of like that's the one form. Another form I would say would be the waltz, the march, the etude, and then you got things like sonata form, etc. But the sonata form, I would say, would be again working on one of those three or four elements that I've said. So, and then you just kind of cobble it together so that it sounds reasonable, and you've got these works, and then you can call them fancy names like impromptus and moments musicaux and sonatas, and you can do whole concerti like that, I think. So that's my offering. I also wanted to say that yeah, that the I've forgotten what I was going to say. Yeah, I mean, so we hear of people like Rachmaninoff and Mahler who had music from God. Well, I take that with a pinch of salt, to be frank. I think that these are tunes that they've hummed to themselves, and it sounded good enough for them to try it out on the piano, and they've just done it that way. And those tunes themselves are based on one of the 3 or 4 categories that I've just outlined. So I may be mistaken, but this is my my sort of suggestion to anyone who is bamboozled by the apparent complexity and profundity of classical music. I don't think it's that profound. I think there's a lot of ingenuousness, ingenuity, if I can put it that way, in the writing of music. I think there's a lot of deception in there, and it's not as difficult as it seems. So I may be wrong, but that's what I wanted to make a video about, and hopefully that can encourage you to try. I think if you've ever just tried to do anything musical, like write some bar lines and put the notes down, or draw a picture of a piano, say this note, then that note, then that note, that might seem to you absolute rubbish compared to Beethoven and people like this. But actually, I think that that's definite proof that you will write when later in life, you know, because it just shows that you have that desire to write music, no matter how you've sketched it in writing. But I think it's important to have something down in writing, whether it's come from your head or what you've made up or whatever. But you having tried to write music is, I think, a very good thing, and it's definitely, in my opinion, augurs well for augurs. You might not write good music, but my music is not good, but you will write music, and it will be, I think, acceptable. You know, it's not as complicated as all that, in my opinion. So hopefully that can encourage you. Thank you very much, and see you later.